I want to start this out with a simple question. Do you remember where you were 25 years ago? For me, I was a 5-year-old kid whose only care in the world was what I was going to do when I got home from school that day. What show was I going to watch once I got off the bus? Would I go over to my cousin's house that day? Would I get to play her Sega? Yeah, that's what all of us called the Genesis when I was a kid. My point is that nowhere in my 5-year-old mind did it ever register that 1,700 miles away, the Western world was about to be introduced to a little black box called the Sega Saturn. And nowhere in that same mind was there ever a thought that that black box would have such a fundamental effect on my life 25 years later. For many, the Saturn is nothing more than another example of a failed console, one of many from a company that has become ubiquitous with Sonic and not much else. And considering its rough start, that's completely understandable. Its North American launch has become little more than the opener for one of the greatest mic drops in gaming history. The library of games available to Western markets has always been dwarfed by its Japanese counterpart. And many of its Western releases aren't much more than shovelware or inferior ports from its competition. The quad-based 3D graphics utilized by the console were rejected by gaming developers of the time and have since become a footnote in gaming development history. In almost every respect, any outsider would be hard-pressed to make the case for why anyone would want to own it today, let alone play any number of games on it. But with all that said, just do a simple Google or YouTube search for the Sega Saturn today, and you'll be flooded with a flurry of articles and videos. Why it failed, what games to collect, its many hidden gems, unreleased prototypes, and the list goes on. So how did this failed console, belittled by so many and overshadowed by its forebear and successor, gain the notoriety it has today? Well, for that, we have to go back. See, Sega was in a position they were very fond of in May of '95. Once again, they would have the chance to beat their main rival Nintendo out the gate in this new 32-bit generation. But unlike the late 80s, there was a new competitor on the stage. We can all look back now and see that Sony was pushing the 32-bit generation and 3D graphics respectively to a level that none of its competition could even touch. The combination of triangular, polygon, CD-based media, and a wealth of third-party developers pushed the PlayStation to the forefront of many a gamer's mind. This placed Sega in the position of relying on console exclusives, which were almost exclusively made in-house by its many internal development teams. But those very same exclusives, coupled with Sega's history of bringing the arcade home and the console's architecture itself, are truly what has kept this console alive in the hearts and minds of so many for so long. The 32-bit era was easily one of the greatest for experimentation when it came to game design. Old school gamers who had long hoped to play one-for-one copies of their arcade favorites at home were finally able to do so. A new generation not held down by the legend of those very same arcades were able to explore new worlds and craft their own stories in many an RPG or adventure game. That generation has become so iconic to so many of us because it was the point where the purpose of gaming shifted. It wasn't enough just to get a high score or a best time. What we wanted were experiences, and the Saturn had plenty of those to give to those lucky few of us who owned one. We took to the skies of a ruined world in Panzer Dragoon, perfected our drifting skills in Sega Rally. We conquered kingdoms in Dragon Force, took to the fields of battle, piloting metal-clad behemoths. We fought off invisible foes in the darkness of space, battled fires in our attempts to save others, facing off against unspeakable horrors in the depths of the ocean. And we spent hours perfecting our skills alone, all so that we could defeat our friends when they came over. The list of experiences that we Saturn owners have is not filled with PlayStation ports, but rather stories exclusive to the hardware and its arcade perfection. And had it not been for the many mistakes Sega and its executives had made, there may have been many countless more stories to make it to our shores. For those who have ever wondered why the Saturn failed, it failed because of Sega themselves. For while the words "the Saturn is not our future" have been ingrained in the annals of history, the community that exists today serves as testament that those words were wrong. For 20 plus years, we, the die-hard fans, have kept its fire alive. While the Dreamcast made its debut, we consistently booted up the old workhorse. As Sega left the console market, we created blogs dedicated to its history, trying our damnedest to let others live vicariously through our reviews and personal stories. We enticed readers from across the globe with its 2D prowess and the beauty of its forgotten 3D. We banded together across countless Facebook groups and Discord servers, sharing tips on how to collect, what games to pick up, and introducing new games to one another. Through podcasts, we forged bonds with others in the community who we would have never had the opportunity to meet otherwise. And with the dawn of the YouTube era, we have made our greatest impact. Countless channels, all with a face and voice behind them. These thousands of videos across this platform have taught others how to mod their consoles, what games they surely missed, how to install patches for fan-translated games, walkthroughs, let's plays, deep dives, unreleased prototypes, and our very own personal memories with the machine. The medium of video has afforded countless numbers of gamers the chance to see what they and so many others had missed. Whether they had chosen a different platform during that era, they hadn't been born yet, or even those who had never heard of the console altogether. And through those very outlets, we have shown the world that a dedicated few have continued to support the hardware and its many games. The indie programmers who have not only brought us fan translations from the Saturn's vast Japanese library, but who have also pushed Saturn emulation to its current state, allowing those without real hardware the opportunity to play the many great exclusives this console has to offer. The creators of its numerous ODEs, mod chips, and the Pseudo Saturn program. Companies like Retrobit who have created modern controllers. The numerous artists creating North American and PAL renditions of games that never made it to those respective regions, proving 20 years later that these games were desired by Western audiences. There's even members creating brand new games for the console a quarter of a century later. The amount of dedication shown by this growing community is mind-boggling in absolutely every respect. So with all that said, we come back to the question, how did this failed console gain the notoriety and status it has today? The simple answer is you. Every time you search Sega Saturn, every time you write a post about it, every time you create a video concerning it, you show the world that its fire still blazes. We, this community, for 20 plus years, have shown through our dedication to this little black box, the friendships we've forged, and the memories that we've shared with countless others across the globe, that Bernie Stolar was wrong. For while the Saturn may have not been Sega's future,
the Saturn was our future.
The Saturn was our future.
Sam, I ain't the foggiest idea what you're using these for, but the Saturn was our future.
The Saturn was our future.
The Saturn was our future.
Sorry, Bernie. The Saturn was our future.
The Saturn was our future.
the Saturn was our future. And it still is.